Welcome back. We're going through the papers now with political commentator Claire Muldoon and writer and podcaster Lewis Oakley. Morning, you two.
Good morning.
Lewis, let's start with the big question today. Did Starmer break lockdown with his voice coach on Christmas Eve?
Clearly he did. I mean, a voice coach
I don't believe he
not
did.
an
I don't believe he
essential
did.
worker.
No, it's obviously there's no difference to his voice. It's as dull and boring as ever. Therefore, I don't believe he saw him.
He should get his money back. But look, I was talking about this yesterday with someone, and the consensus of people was, oh, Lewis, it's 5 years ago, get over it. I'm not over it, to be honest. I remember these lockdowns, and I remember, we were pregnant.
Well, is that a resigning issue for him then?
Yeah. I really would go a lot further. I would throw a load of people in jail for what happened to us in COVID. They got it so wrong. And it ruined people's lives. I remember we were pregnant at the time. My other half was terrified she was going to have to give birth alone. She made me promise, if we get there and they say you can't come in, we have to go home. I'm not doing it without you. I think that lockdown restrictions led to my granddad's eventual death. There is so many things that I just think it's disgusting.
I was outraged at funerals and people not being allowed to say goodbye to their loved ones and whatever. It
was disgusting. And then you find out that they're allowed to have voice coaches, and this is just the tip of the iceberg of all the other things we found out that, ministers, people that were either in charge of government or were in opposition saying we should be doing much more, weren't abiding by the same rules. It's outrageous.
This is what happens when you've got someone who was head of the CPS as a lawyer, is now in charge of the country. He knows all the loopholes, and this is also a really important journalistic fact, that journalists have to be there to probe everything, to question everything and hold people and judgments to scrutiny. And this is what's happening now. And Keir Starmer, we have been shown all the time how he is operating as two-tier Keir. And I'm sorry, enough is enough. The fact that he had a voice coach, I'm with Eamon on this, he still sounds as robotic as ever, and she needs to be sacked or given he needs a full refund. Probably it came out the public office, public purse. And I'm sorry, it didn't work. And this is not working, and he has to be held accountable.
You're totally right. I think that what we're seeing from him is that kind of lawyer vibe of like, oh, well, I've got an excuse for that. Oh, well, I can get out of that. And it's just this growing feeling of you just think you're in your own lane, don't you? That you are above everyone else.
All power
Well,
corrupts.
he did say if he was ever found to break the rules that he would step down from his position. He said that in 2021 with Beergate in Durham. He said if it was found to break the rules, he would have stepped down. So we'll have to see what happens in this instance.
Claire, 25% of people who are couples, right, would let their partner have an affair with a celebrity crush. And we've got a full list of who the celebrities are, the most popular being Brad Pitt and the least popular being Henry Cavill. But so there's a whole list. All sorts of people are.
Do you know what?
Are in there.
Anyone would think Valentine's Day is coming up, and a card company wanted to sell some cards, or even get the romance into things. But who on earth would want to question and make a survey up of this? Something as derisory as this. How on earth can couples actually maintain a semblance of self-respect, of respect for the relationship, and say, actually, I want to have it off with Brad Pitt, or I want to have it off with someone else? It's disgusting. But Lewis, you spoke about staying in your lane. These people should stay in their lane.
If you could, would you? Maybe it's that sort of question.
But you keep
like
that to yourself. I mean, come on. There should never be any hall passes in relationships. No. It then leads to fundamental breakdowns of respect, of unity and of virtue.
I think, look, if push comes to shove, I'm sure that people would say, oh, my God, Brad Pitt's now here. Actually, I take it back. You don't have a hall pass. But I think that it's actually OK for couples to talk about who they find attractive. One thing that does irritate me is when married couples pretend that, they have no hormones anymore and they don't notice other attractive people. Of course you do. You're married, not dead.
Yeah. Are you shaking your head there? Are you shaking like...
I don't want to hear about it. Like Claire said, you keep that to yourself.
Yes.
No, but don't you think it's healthy in a relationship to talk about who you find attractive?
You don't want to hear that you might, if you could go on a dinner date with Idris Elba, you wouldn't.
But we're not just talking about
dinner date with Idris Elba.
Why not?
Because I'm engaged.
Yes. And you're engaged
No,
to
but that's the
Jared.
thing. You probably wouldn't actually end up doing it, but
Doesn't
talking
matter.
about it,
Doesn't
you know,
matter.
there's a difference between fantasy and reality.
It plants the seed, and that is dangerous.
Yes.
I have to say,
I'm with you, Claire.
I've met George Clooney a number of times, and the man is...
And you would.
He's divine. Well, he's divine. He's a very, very nice, charming man. I've never met Margot Robbie, but I would, I would there. But I mean, Margot Robbie may be horrible. I don't know.
And Margot Robbie may not want to cheat with you. Who knows?
I'm sure she wouldn't, but then it's not up to her. It's a quarter of couples asking if you could give your partner a license, who would you let them have an affair with?
Well, just don't give any licenses, right? It's just not right. It's morally repugnant.
So if your wife said, I would love to have it away with Brad Pitt, you'd be fine.
I'd say, oh yeah, I would allow it. But then if he actually showed up, I'd say, actually no. So I think it's fine to, in jest, say, of course, I wouldn't stand in your way.
Two-tier Lewis.
There we go. I'm happy to be a hypocrite.
I saw on my Instagram, I got a couple of these videos that came, and this guy stops a couple coming out of a supermarket, and he says, excuse me, I've never met you before. He said, but for $5,000, would you let me spend the night with your wife?
No, that's
ridiculous. Anyway, he got to $100,000 and they said yes.
No.
Oh my God.
And he walked away.
There's a Robert Redford film with Demi Moore.
There is. There is. What's that called?
I don't know what it's called, but it was $1 million.
Yes.
And they went ahead with it, or I don't think when the push came to the shove, I don't think the girl actually did. But why live your life like that? It's like these girls wanting to...
Indecent proposal.
That was what it was called.
Indecent.
Yeah, and it is indecent.
Claire, let's start with this extraordinary intervention yesterday by medical experts that said that the child killer Lucy Letby did not murder any babies.
Well, these new documents and this new evidence are very troubling for the justice system and also for the incarcerated Lucy Letby. But moreover, we have to mention the families who have lost their children. OK, they must be going through absolute turmoil. But for Dr. Shu Lee, who's a retired neonatalist, I think, from Canada, he has said the evidence would suggest to him that, in fact, all children, all babies died from natural causes. It makes you wonder why on earth they used Lucy Letby to become a modern-day patsy, almost, for NHS failings. And this hospital is requiring special measures, it requires improvement, and there was a lot of neonatal deaths, not only in that Royal Countess Hospital, but also in other neonatal departments in other hospitals. So it's the care, it's the accountability. It is hugely frightening.
Yeah.
Hugely frightening. But we've known there's a bullying culture and there is no whistleblowing culture of such within the NHS.
We were all happy to look at Lucy Letby and say, Lewis, you know, oh, she's a murderer, she's a killer, she's got blood on her hands, and people tend to feel better for all of that. But if it turns out that she's not guilty, we'll all feel pretty bad about it.
Oh, yeah, I remember being on TV when this happened, and people were saying, do you not think that this is cause for bringing back the death penalty?
Yeah.
And you just think, well, thank God that that's not the case, because she might be innocent, or she might not have committed these crimes. So this is the worry now, and I think it's really hard to separate sort of how we emotionally feel about this, sort of the rule of law, and this is the way that you know, legal cases work. I think what we just need the truth. We need to figure out, why did these babies die? That's all we need. And
we're going to hear from
happens,
families today on this, and I think the thing is they again want a reason that their child died, and
of course,
I think they'll be keen to believe.
I think what they've been through, they've been told your child unfortunately died. Then later on, they'd have been told there was the potential.
But I think the other key thing is that the key thing is the phrase reasonable doubt. And if the evidence that we now have was presented to the jury, there would have been surely reasonable doubt in order not to commit Lucy Letby.
Well, one of the mothers of a baby boy who Lucy Letby tried to murder has hit back last night, and she says it's upsetting and disrespectful.
Of course it is.
To free her, because, I mean, for some of these families, their babies died in 2015. I mean, this is 10 years ago.
I completely understand where they are.
They want answers. They thought they had them last year when Lucy Letby was found guilty of these 7 murders, and now
Well, to
it's all
take
back
away,
to
you're
square one,
taking
they
away
would feel.
some semblance of closure that sort of, it was awful what had happened, but they knew what had happened and that person had faced the consequences. To then have the idea that actually this might all have to be opened up again, I wouldn't wish it on anyone.
No.
There's something to be said about whistleblower culture in the NHS, though, Claire, you're right, because there are reportedly a number of nurses who wanted to come out and defend Lucy Letby, but they were told and advised that their role perhaps wouldn't be.
You know, we've heard about her.
So.
We've heard about her notebooks saying, "I'm evil. I did this. I did this," but they're all contemporaneous. They weren't. And if you are convinced that if people have convinced that you are the killer, a baby killer, is very emotive, then you will look inwardly and think, what have I done?
Yeah.
Well, no doubt about what Valdo Calocane did in Nottingham last summer, and he did kill 3 people. This again reflects, Lewis, on the NHS and medication that he could have had, didn't have, whatever.
So this is interesting because the headline is NHS allowed Nottingham killer to skip medication. Now, this is about the antipsychotic medication that he should have been taking. It's interesting that they've chosen to go with that as the headline. And as someone, everything I've said on the record about COVID vaccines and people should be free to choose to take the medication that they want to take. Obviously, in this situation, it's, well, if you're not going to take that medication, then actually you can't just wander around freely. But I think that covers up some of the other failings that went on with this NHS. So, I mean, NHS workers were warned to visit him in pairs and have a clear exit because he was so prone to aggression. He was discharged from mental health care just because he was no longer engaging with staff. These are not reasons to let someone out on the street. So I think the medication thing has taken up a big part of that headline. But there's a catalogue of failings here that went on.
Surely not engaging with your mental health team is a form of your mental health in itself and a dereliction of that. This goes back as well, I think, to the breakdown of community care in this country and care in the community. There are lots of people that have been shunted that shouldn't be shunted back into society. And we're now reaping
and
the results of that.
And Claire, they're talking about, there've been an inquiry into this and how we can better look after people like Calocone in the future and whatever it is. There's no money to look after them. There's no willpower. There's no staff.
There's no want. If they wanted a way to find it, instead of giving 9 billion to the Chagos Islands, we could start addressing the issues in this country and make people safer.
On that subject, let's talk about the Chagos Islands here. We're going to be bringing this up later in the programme this morning. So we were paying off, or we're renting out for £9 billion.
9 billion.
And they've decided to double that to 18 billion.
Well, the truth is, Rachel Reeves and the Cabinet don't even know where they're going to find the money to pay this back over the 99-year lease. Now, the Mauritian government have now got a new head of state. They've got a new Prime Minister who's now saying, he's looked at the figures. We've got inflation. Why should we accept this amount when at the end of the term it's going to be worthless? We won't actually have any money. And what are America doing? They're like, Starmer, what are you doing? And as usual, Starmer is behaving like the lawyer, the litigant in person that he is, instead of being a leader, instead of being a diplomat, instead of being the Prime Minister.
OK, thank you for that, Claire. Lewis, thank you.